Hello and welcome back to Store Hero Podcast. This week I'm joined by Keohane from Studio 49. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Thomas.
No problem at all. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from sunny Cork,
Sunny Cork.
the lee side by. So I'm in between. I'm on the island of Cork at the moment, in between the two rivers. As you might know, like in Cork, if you have to cross two rivers in one day, gone too far. So I've only gone over one river so far today. Um,
It's Friday. You
it's,
might get over the other one yet.
I doubt it.
A lot of people listening to the show will be familiar with yourself and with Studio 49, but maybe for some of our listeners who, haven't come across you guys before, it'd be great to just kind of get a high level overview in terms of what you guys do, how you operate, and where you're based.
Sure. Studio 49 is an e-commerce agency. We specialize in retail e-commerce. Our client profile is Irish independent retailers, second generation, family owned, name above the door with a bunch of physical stores around the country. So that's our typical kind of client. We deal and work with a whole variety of different types of retailer. So from people like Pet Stop, selling obviously pet food and things like that, to DID Electrical, selling electrical appliances, to Alvarez Sports. And everything in between, all manner of different types of retailer. I think we work with about 70 or so retailers pretty actively, and they're pretty much all Irish based. We ourselves are based in Cork, so the company is in Cork. I'm sitting in 50 South Mall right now, which is right next door to the studio on 49 South Mall, where Studio 49 started in 2006. But we're pretty much digital first at this stage, which I understand is the new trending word for remote. We're leaning into digital first, so we've got team members all over the globe, really, nearly at this stage, all working full time for Studio 49. We very much believe in having like the team completely on board. And I suppose like our typical kind of a thing would be we do systems integration, we do design and development, we do marketing, we do the whole kit and caboodle. People talk a lot about, you should niche when you're an agency. Well, we niched into e-commerce. So we do everything in e-commerce, but we niched into e-commerce. So that's our niche. So we'll do everything from demand generation, getting traffic onto the site, conversion rate optimization, average order value maximization, systems integration, automations, the whole thing. That's Studio 49.
I wasn't aware you guys were around 18 years. You must have seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly at this point. Has it always been ecom first, or was that kind of a pivot you guys have made in the last couple of years? Or talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, we don't pivot, we evolve.
I love it.
So, yeah, no changes here. Evolution. That's what it's all about, baby. We started out as a web application development agency. So we would have done, so like I myself, I would have done a lot of web development. I built data scraping tools, otherwise known as spam bots. We won't talk about that. And that kind of thing. I worked for about a year on a dating app before dating was cool. So this was an actual desktop website where you had to log in and do all that. I built the matching algorithm for it. Um, so we did a
We
lot of
we actually had a chat about that up in Belfast, and I think it's
yeah.
it's like an early version of Tinder to a certain extent, is what you were working on a little bit.
At the time, well, it was actually quite interesting. I'd say nowadays it was too early. Basically, it was before mobile phones. So like it's no crack on a desktop, when you're dating. So it was probably too early, but it was funny because the matching algorithm was based on the principles of feng shui. So feng shui is
Feng Shui.
it's an astrological philosophy, I suppose. It's basically something similar to saying, well, Libras go with Capricorns or Taurans or whatever. In Feng Shui, you've got three animals that represent your inner, outer, and secret personalities, and they attract and repel the other, let's say, signs. So you can get really into get deep into how to match people with each other based on what the time of day they were born and the year, year and date and all the rest of it. So that was it. My QA at the time was trying to figure out whether Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were made for each other. My algorithm said they weren't. I was really devastated. I thought I was like, everybody thought that they were. Turns out my algorithm was right. So I need to resurrect it. But we did that. That was prior to Studio 49. That went bust. I was in the States at the time. I came back to Ireland with my tail firmly between my legs. I had to start up something else. So I started a web agency was all I knew, and we built in the early days everything from candidate tracking systems to Facebook for horses to um, like even things like memorials for online for people who had passed away and all sorts of things, like all
Mad
weird
stuff.
wonderful stuff. But we kind of accidentally got into e-commerce because nobody was building integration tooling for e-commerce in Ireland. So a lot of the e-commerce agencies at the time were like marketing agencies. So they were building shops and designing shops and stuff like this. But if you wanted to integrate with Relix for payment gateway integration, there was no options. Or if you wanted to customize the checkout to remove the requirement for postcodes, which we didn't have in 2006, there was no options for that. So we were building these modules. We built a module for Magento for Relix, and we built a bunch of other payment gateway integrations. And we started getting a lot of calls about e-commerce sites. We built our first e-commerce site on Magento 0.9. So it was a pre-release beta version of Magento. And so we saw like the whole arc with
Well,
Magento,
student gallery.
yeah, over the next couple of years. But it was kind of it was a tough enough area to be in terms of like, because with web application development, you basically are you're continuously having to learn an entire new domain, solution design for that domain, build the whole thing. Like, I mean, Facebook for horses. What's important about horses? There's mares and dams and sires and all this kind of stuff, and you got to figure out what's important to know, so that the Arabian sheiks can get themselves the correct horse from Ireland. And you got to learn all of that, and then you build it. And typically, there's nothing to do next. Like you don't often get an iteration of it. Sometimes these companies would get investment and bring all the work in house. Sometimes they would sell and there was no more work to do. So in about 2013, we had been building a bunch of different sites, e-commerce sites, but we built our first proper like full scale integration with an ERP and so on for a local company here called Casey's Furniture. It was great. We really enjoyed it. In comparison to some of the projects we were working on at the time, we actually got paid, which didn't always
Always a
happen with
bonus.
startup companies. So we thought, well, look, retail e-commerce, there's a thing there. People need to have their systems integrated, and they have stock, they have inventory, they have order processing, they gotta integrate to loyalty platforms. There's a whole heap of things that they need to do, and that gives us a particular domain that we can get expertise in. And we decided at that time to focus on retail e-commerce, and that's when we developed our ideal client profile that I mentioned at the start. So
Lots there. We've gone from an early iteration of Tinder to selling horses to rich Arabs to integrating ERP systems 11 years ago.
oh,
Quite a length and breadth of
there
experience.
was a lot more than that. Let me tell you, some of the stuff we built, it was like some of it was great. It was early, like even I was pitched for an early version of Halo, for example, or well Uber or whatever.
Yeah,
It was so interesting at the time to see what people were trying to get startups on. Some of them were crazy there, like. And as well as that, like they were all pre the iPhone in some cases. So it was very interesting because a lot of these things nowadays on the iPhone, where you've got a device in your hands, they work a lot better. There was one I remember, which was a meditation tool, and it was a meditation, and it was like it was a graphic, and basically it was to do with butterfly wings, and you watched the meditation and you aligned your breath with it and this sort of stuff. But like on a desktop computer, like you're there sitting there with a
yeah.
ginormous like computer operating Windows. Nothing about that is calming. and then you're trying to do meditation watching butterfly wings like on a mobile phone now or on an Apple Watch or something, where you can get the vibrations going and all the rest of it. It all makes sense. But it was interesting. It was definitely every day was a different day and a learning day. So yeah.
100%. You've probably seen hundreds, if not thousands, of e-com stores in that time period. It's probably no secret, even since the days of 2013. I often say this. Brands would probably look at the customer acquisition costs and CPMs of businesses who were operating back in 2013 and say, "Oh my God, it was so easy." But you also didn't have the technical infrastructure available then that you have now. Like you've mentioned
Yeah.
a lot of, even the reason for getting started was integrating Relex into e-commerce businesses. People do not think about that process whatsoever anymore. So
Yeah.
while there's certain elements from a marketing perspective now that maybe e-commerce founders of today would bite your arm off for. I'm not sure if you haven't had that experience of, such a long time within the e-commerce industry, would go back to a time where the e-com infrastructure surrounding the business really just wasn't built out to, the standard that we have today.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally different. And it's funny, it's only 10 years
Not
or
that
so.
long ago. Yeah.
But if you think about it, in 2000 and let's say 8, 9, 10, 11, if you wanted to build an online business, you needed an internet merchant account with a
Mm.
bank. So you needed an acquiring bank that would give you an internet merchant account. Some cases that would take 3 or 4 months to get. You needed,
Yeah.
if you imagine setting up accounts and bank accounts, it's such a pain. And it was
Yeah.
even harder at the time. You need to set up one of those things. Then you need to get yourself a payment gateway and figure out, how all of that side of things work. So it was when in the Magento days, for example, I remember like some retailers nearly had to get an education in server administration and sharding
Yeah.
databases and clustered environments. I remember talking with a guy only about a year or 2 years ago, and he was telling me about his failover setup and the servers and the redundancy that he had built into it. And I was like, "Are you a developer? Like, is this thing?" He goes, "No, no." And I said, "What do you do?" He goes, "I design clothes." And I was like, "Why do you know about this?" And he said, "Well, we run WooCommerce." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Why would you bother with that?" So I don't think anybody would want to go back to that time, bar maybe a few agents. Certainly from an agency perspective, like those systems used to break so frequently, it was very
Mm.
easy to have a retainer. You needed an agency just to stand everything up for you.
Keep the show on the road.
But it wasn't pleasant work. So I think the democratization of the technology has definitely improved things for everybody. I mean, you're going back to pre-Stripe days. I mean, when Stripe came out, and all of a sudden you could actually get payment into your own bank account, any bank account at all. It was revolutionary at the time, and it's
Mm.
done so much since then. And now, he built my son. My son has a little e-commerce business. It's called Foggy Joe. He sells t-shirts. He designed the t-shirts. I built him the website for his t-shirts, including the whole domain name registration, getting the site set up, putting his products in there, designing in inverted commas the site on a train journey down from Dublin. So I'm on Dublin on Erin Road
Yeah.
Erin's incredibly great connection, and I built this site. He needed it in time for Black Friday, of course. And I put myself under pressure. I said I'd get it done for him by Black Friday, so it was like the Wednesday or something. And got the site built, integrated it with a t-shirt, a print on demand service.
Yeah.
You buy the t-shirt, it sends a print on demand request to this t-shirt printing service, and they send out the t-shirt. And built all of that in 2 hours. I mean, it's incredible what you can do nowadays. In terms of the marketing side of things, I suppose the reality there, in a way, is that everybody is always trying to get a little bit of the pie and a bit of the,
Yeah.
and Google and Facebook and Meta and all of these other kind of channels that you have out there, and those marketing opportunities, like they're always going to be working to try and figure out how to get more of your sales. But at the same time, you'd be pretty much lost without them. I mean,
Yeah.
the from a marketing perspective, back in, let's say, 10 years ago, you'd have like 60 to 70% organic traffic nearly, and
Mm.
maybe 30% paid. It's totally flipped on its head now. If you want to get, drive traffic to the site, you've got to go down that road. And you didn't have the same level of, let's say, opportunity previously. When Google Shopping came to Ireland, it was a big deal. It was
Huge.
transformative for Irish e-commerce to have this additional channel that was available. So things changed. times change, but I don't think anybody wants to go back to trying to stand up a
No.
server to run
No.
Magento 1 as an
I remember
application.
you my mom has had an e-commerce business for 20 years, and I remember you would know immediately when the checkout had broke, and it would break quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just back on a before we would have ever moved to Shopify, we were on a different e-commerce platform at the time, and yeah, it was just I think stuff you take for granted, like your checkout working, which is a pretty basic thing nowadays, just wasn't always the case. And I mean, imagine just your checkout breaking on a regular basis, and
Yeah.
it kill your business immediately. Um,
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you as I said, you've kind of seen hundreds, if not thousands, of e-commerce businesses over the last couple of years. What are some common mistakes brands are making, maybe that they don't even realize?
Like there's a couple, I suppose there's mistakes is kind of, I suppose, in some ways is a bit of a harsh and judgmental, nearly kind of a thing to say. I don't think people intend to make mistakes, and especially the ones that are hidden are more things that you nearly need to learn over time. You nearly need a bit of
Okay,
experience or something. But the kinds of things that are, I would say, let's say, a bit on the typical side nowadays. One of them in particular, we see a bit is delays in getting product onto the website in the first place.
yeah,
People forget about it. You got to get your catalog onto the website so that it can actually be purchased. And any delay in getting a product onto the website means that you have less of a window to sell through at full price. So if you're a merchant or a retailer who has multiple seasons in a year, and you take a week or 2 weeks to get your product onto the website before it starts selling, the competition is already there selling the same product most likely. They're warming up the customer base for the advertising to get the traffic onto their sites. You're closer to the point at which you're going to have to start promoting it or discounting the thing to get a sell through. You've got less time to go through the whole returns process if that's going to be necessary. Like if you're in women's fashion, chances are 40 to 50%, maybe in some cases, or of the orders that you send out will come back to you.
it's a
And
huge
that's going
problem.
to take like 3 weeks or something. So if you're slow about getting your product onto the website, it extends the length of time that you need for everything else, and dramatically increases the chance that your exit margin is going to be impacted.
It's
So,
such an interesting point, actually. I don't think people talk about that enough. Speed of product landing, product and website. That it's such a fine, and as you said,
yeah,
if you're a brand that's operating and changing every season, every week or two that you delay is a huge percentage of that season that's gone. And as you just kind of mentioned already, your competitors are already out of the traps, probably ahead of you as well.
well, that's it. And it's funny. In some cases, people worry a lot about perfecting the page. Obviously, you'd like a good page and all the rest of it, but there's definitely a case when done is better than perfect. I remember my partner was doing her master's and she was writing the thesis and she was kind of worrying about all the thing. And my comment on it was the only good thesis is a submitted thesis. Get it done, get it submitted. But that definitely, and working to improve that production process of getting the product onto the website. Everybody needs to get involved in it. Like, got to get buy-in from the buyers who are buying the product in the first place. They need to tell you what's special about it, what kind of filters they want, get the photography from the suppliers, get the content from the suppliers, get the ERP team to load up the product as fast as possible. When it comes in the door into the warehouse, the goods received in needs to happen fast. So the barcoding needs to be good so that the warehouse team can pull the product onto the shelves. So that you know that you're stocking it, you need the integration then, so that the product goes up on the website. Like you
Yeah,
really should be trying to achieve, a same day, if not maybe I guess maybe within 2 working days of the product arriving in your business, it should be on the website, minimum, I would say. And that's an area that takes an awful lot of work. So it's kind of a bit of
mm,
probably a hidden, let's say, mistake. Another area, I suppose, that people kind of forget about a bit, I think, is trading the site. So it's not, I don't know if this is the realm of mistake, we'll say, but what I mean by that is, you've got an idea of how your product should be selling or what should be selling and selling well and what should sell with the products that you're selling, and just reviewing the products to see, okay, well, am I selling as much of this product online as I am in store, for example? And if not, why not? Cross-selling with the product, and if not, why not? What should I do to cross-sell? How do I make sure that the customer is aware of the benefits of the product or the other products that it goes with, and how do I market to the customers so that if they buy product X, that I then market for them product Y. So, to really sweat the asset of the e-commerce site and your customer base that's on it. And that's that's a discipline. You kind of
Mm.
have to look at that. Like it's very easy to just get caught up in trying to get the product out the door as fast as possible. Next day delivery, same day delivery. Getting your operations really set, and all of that is important. But it's nearly a discipline to continuously look at the website to see if it's merchandised correctly. Your best products are you putting your best foot forward when you go to the product landing page? Or sorry, the product listing page,
Mm.
that you can easily find the products that are best margin, that you have the most stock of, that customers are going to be interested in, and that you're connecting cross-sell products together, or upsell
I
products.
think that's such a really interesting point that I think an awful lot of brands gloss over.
Mm,
It's not changing your website, it's just changing the front window of your shop.
yeah,
And it can make a massive difference.
yeah,
Like often, in Shopify, I see this all the time with brands where the products are just sorted by A to Z when you go into the collection,
yeah.
and they're not sorted by best match, but top selling. Like, and it's a very simple and small little errors I think a lot of brands can be making that could be just detrimental to how if you've a collection with 200 or 300 products and it's just sorted A to Z and you log in there, I mean it's not optimized at all for
Mm,
that attention span that you're fighting for with your customers when they land on the
yeah.
website, and really trying to improve that conversion rate, I suppose, as a result.
There is a figure out there I've seen, but I can't remember the exact figure, but it's like, let's say, it's an impressively strong result if you're managing and merchandising your product listing page, products that come up, that you've managed to come up at the top, to ensure, for example, that they're available even, and that you don't have, like, if your first three products are typically sold out in most sizes, for example, you're just
Yeah.
frustrating your customer. They go into product one, it's sold out in most sizes. They go into product two, it's sold out in most sizes. When you put your best foot forward there, like, the conversion rate increase is pretty significant. But that is a trading discipline. You have to trade the site. It doesn't really impact how the site looks necessarily or anything like that. And I agree with you on that. Like, what we see is people put it usually sort by newest first, and that's so arbitrary. There could be
Mm.
a pair of socks at the top of your menswear.
Yeah.
Like, are you online to sell socks? Well, if you're not doing certain stuff, you're not really. So that's kind of an area, and like that is definitely a useful discipline, I think, and people kind of leave it out, and kind of, let's say, linked to that is also sweating the customer base asset. So just remembering, and you guys, Store Hero, you focus on this quite a bit. This whole thing of, like, when you get to profitability in terms of your orders, are you going to be first order profitable? Are you going to be second order profitable? And how do you spread the cost of your customer acquisition fees? And the way to do it really, or the most important thing that can affect that, is whether or not you're able to get your customers to buy again. So the retained customer, and what are the journeys that your customers go on. You'd have obvious journeys, like, if a customer buys, if a customer buys a couch, for example, probably within 30 days they'll be in the market for a coffee table, because they've just got the
Yeah.
couch, and they're putting their foot up on the coffee table, and they look looking at it, goes, oh, that's not as quite as nice as my couch, or they might, that's kind of stuff. So there's definitely journeys that customers go on, that you can identify, that aren't, it's not rocket science for you to identify. And you've got, like, typically a lot of retailers have this enormous asset, which is their customer data, and their customers. It's a huge, huge asset. They spent a lot of money. They've
It's
invested a
huge.
huge amount of money acquiring this asset, and they really need to sweat that asset. And it's quite forgotten about. And I think that can be a big mistake. The other things, like, again, going back to Story Hero, I suppose, a bit, like, that whole contribution margin piece and the overall costs in business, it's surprising how often that's forgotten. It's nearly 101 in business to watch your margins and all of that kind of thing. But it can be surprising sometimes, and I definitely remember looking at P&Ls and going over P&Ls with customers in the past. And I remember one particular time where a customer had very, very thin exit margin, so their gross margin was great, but
Yeah.
the actual exit margin was not great. And one of the things that they were doing, they were giving a little free gift with every order that they were sending out. and they hadn't actually calculated that as a cost. And it turned out it was costing them 10 grand a year to send out this little free gift. I mean, like as soon as they saw that and it was down on paper and they saw how it affected their actual their exit
Mm.
margin, that free gift got the boot. So, all right, certainly you would start to wonder, are you getting value out of that? So that's another area that I think, sitting down with the P&L and actually putting everything into it, all of the costs, so that you can really understand your actual profit at the end of the day is important as well.
Yeah, really interesting point. 'Cause I just think the whatever you want to call it, the Facebook tax, the Google tax has just increased dramatically for brands in the last 2 years, and it's just, I think, not. It's definitely not for the first time. As you said, it is business 101 to a certain extent, but I think a lot of brands had probably the luxury to a certain extent of not needing to understand how it all knitted together. It was kind of masked by cheap CAC for such a long time, cheap customer acquisition costs. Facebook and Google were just so efficient for such a long time that
Mm.
the e-commerce side of the business just worked. Marketing were doing a great job, site looked great, and it all just really worked together. And probably the dirty secret with a lot of brands was nobody fully understood the intricacies of how it all knitted together and how it actually worked. And
Yeah.
now, as a result of just increased, yeah, Facebook and Google tax, that margin for error that brands maybe have is kind of gone, I suppose. And just it's more prescient now for brands to be as sharp on those numbers than probably ever before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there was probably even some kind of like if I was a conspiracy theorist, like some kind of a marketing ploy done around things like ROAS, which is dog shit as a KPI. But like everybody talks about ROAS, and it's kind of useful, but it's nearly that it's so akin to return on investment that people forget that it's not return on investment. But
No,
it's an
at
easy
all.
one for like financial controllers or CFOs to kind of go, oh yeah, okay, if I spend this amount, this is what I'm getting back. But like in reality, what people and a KPI that I think people just don't pay enough attention to. Like the original KPIs in e-commerce, traffic, conversion rate, and average order value equals revenue. That was the one that everybody looked at. But the KPI that people forget about, and this is probably the mistake, is the customer lifetime value,
Huge.
your retention rate. Those KPIs about when are your customers going to become loyal customers? How do you get them to that stage? And working on that part of the business as much, or if not more, than you work on the traffic piece or there's a huge amount of effort and investment put into acquisition,
Massive.
and just really, really, really not enough put into retention. So,
What are some brands that you'd point to for inspiration? They don't need to be Irish brands, but if you were, sitting down with a retailer tomorrow and you were pointed to some, brands that you really look up to, respect, admire, could you name like 3 or 4 different brands? Don't have to be in Ireland, different industries, kind of verticals, that
yeah,
kind of thing, but be interested just to get your thoughts.
I actually find it a little bit difficult sometimes, but the brands that typically brands that I admire are ones that have put a decent amount of effort into understanding their customer, like such that it's actually visible and
Mm,
and you can tell on the website that they've done this. So it could be from like a deep brand and customer proposition, and you can really tell from that they've sat down and thought about it, and who is our target market, who is buying our product, how do we excite and delight them, how do we keep them on board. So that could be like how through branding, but it could also be through, let's say, efforts around loyalty and things like that. And I mean, for me, like one of the like retail 101s, and the thing that most people get into retail for is customers. People love selling to people. They love their customers. They really understand their customers. Most retailers are taking enormous bets on how well they know their customers because they're buying
huge.
huge amounts of stock in advance, based entirely on their understanding of their customers, and that somebody is going to buy a green metallic shoe in spring summer 2025, and I got to do that now. So like when brands then show like or express this, let's say, understanding or love of their customers through the website, I admire that quite a lot. Brands that do this, like that I've been looking at over the last number of years. One would be REI in the United States. That is, I think it's like rec recreation equipment industry or something like that is what REI stands for. But it's basically an outdoor adventure, like Great Outdoors in Ireland or whatever. But they have a membership, let's say, benefit system, which is it's basically a loyalty system,
Hmm.
but it's expressed as a cooperative.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
it's a really nice touch. And I think it really speaks to the type of customer that they have, the people who go outdoors and are into adventure and all of this kind of a thing. Because what they're talking about is a co-op. And on their website, they say that in a cooperative, the profit goes back to the source. And how they express that through what they do with their customers is that they don't give loyalty points. At the end of the year, at the end of their financial year, they top up all of your orders and they give you a percentage rebate on all of your orders in the previous year. So you spend with them during the year, and then in February, I think it is, they give you a credit, basically store credit, and now you can buy from the store with this. It's in a way identical to loyalty points, just
Hmm.
expressed differently. And I always thought that was so clever because of the way that created this emotional connection and togetherness, inclusivity in a particular way with their particular customers. It's their
Yeah.
way of doing it. Another one, kind of again, just in this whole loyalty area, that I kind of like as well was Elf Makeup. Again, like it's simple enough stuff, but they know that their customers are buying from
Hmm.
anywhere, and they're
Yeah.
okay with that. And they don't mind if you buy from Amazon or you buy from Boots or you buy from wherever, and they will reward you, regardless of where you buy, and they'll allow you to upload your receipt, and you'll get loyalty points on the Elf website for that, and you will be part of their beauty squad. And the beauty
Nice.
squad is like, to me at least, and okay, I'm an old guy, but the idea of a beauty squad sounds cool and exciting. I'd like to be part of a beauty squad. So that's talking to their customers, and you see that kind of stuff. I really like that. There's another site I was talking with Gordon recently, Gordon Newman, and he has fallen in love with this brand called Vacation, which is sunscreen. And they basically their brand proposition is this is the best smelling sunscreen out there. When you buy sunscreen, typically you're not buying it to make yourself smell better. But when you're thinking about it, there's the fact that it smells better says a lot about their customers, and why
Hmm.
they would use this. And their whole vibe is this kind of 80s kitsch, Florida, Miami, on the beach kind of a thing. It's quite kitsch, but really cool. It's very, very well done. You can get a job title and get a business card as part of the vacation team. So you can be on the staff. My one is I'm the executive jacuzzi lifeguard or something. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of playfulness in there and that sort of thing. And I
You won't
think
have
it
too much
is.
need for that one in Cork.
Well, yeah, no, not really. But it's indicative, I think, from how well they understood they
Yeah.
understand the customer, and being able to create this emotional connection with customers, I think is difficult. It's challenging, and when you do it right, it's incredibly rewarding for everybody. And admire businesses that focus on that. So those
Yeah.
would be the
It's
best brands that I would look at.
it's a tough one to tackle, but I think to your point, if you can crack it, it's a massive unfair advantage that you've then created for you as a business, and even to your earlier point about trying to
Yeah.
boost that customer lifetime value, if you can create that emotional connection and attachment to that brand, that your LTV as a result is just going to, obviously increase tremendously over the next couple of months. Um, I suppose we're recording this on at the end of August here. We're not too far away from that four-letter acronym that tends to terrify or excite people working in e-commerce, BFCM.
Yeah.
So I suppose 3 months out from BFCM, if you were talking to a brand today, what should they be doing now to, get themselves ramped up and ready for what is, a really condensed, and probably this year more than ever. It's on the Black Friday last year, I think was Friday the 25th of November. It's Friday the 29th of November this year, which doesn't sound like a huge window or a huge change, but it just further condenses that time, that buying season, I suppose, that brands
Mm.
have to sell to their customers.
Yeah.
So 3 months out, what would be your top tips to brands?
I guess the most obvious thing is if you did a post-mortem on last year, you go back and look at it. Like every year, you know yourself, every year people say, oh, okay, next year I'm not going to make this mistake. I must remember that. So if you've any notes on what you did last year that you were, just go back and look at them quickly. That would be top tip number one. Then after that, I think again you're back to the Black Friday, and that BFCM period is changing. And I think
Hmm.
you need to be a little bit careful around it. You got to watch out for late shoppers. So I think last year there was a huge increase in the number of people who didn't buy until very, very late. So they kept on coming back to the site, see if there was a price drop or was the price dropping further and so on. So I'm trying to manage that a bit and working on how you're going to manage that this year.
Yeah.
Are you like communicating to the customers that this is the final price drop, or trying to get that sale over the line, or if there isn't going to be price drops, just being aware that customers are going to be coming back to the site, reloading the page, or whatever, and then watching out for where that activity is to direct the customer potentially to other products that they might be interested that might be on sale, so that you can try and keep the sale for yourself. I think that's one that's kind of worth for it's an unusual thing and it's worth having to think about because definitely last year there was in the stats you'll have noticed, and you probably saw it as well. It's really, really quite slow
Mm.
in Black Friday, and then ramped up on the Sunday and the Monday, and when people were like, okay, this is going to be it, I'll go and buy now. So just kind of watching out for that and thinking about how you might deal with it. The other one, I suppose, again, it kind of seems obvious, but people do forget about this, is identifying deals and having stock of the deals. So what is it that, like, you need to have a deal? You don't, not everything on the website, and I've been saying this for years, people will buy full price during Black Friday.
100%.
They definitely will. But they will want to see a deal on the site. So you have to, I believe you have to have a deal. Deals should be reasonable and reasonably attractive and all the rest of it. And your goal really is to get the customer to buy full price as well. So they'll stay on the site for the deal, to look at the deal. That doesn't mean you can't upsell them to better product. So if you've got a deal, or a promotion or whatever, you can totally upsell to the next level, to the full price product. Absolutely, and just keep that in mind. Black Friday isn't just about sales necessarily. People are in the mood for buying, and they will buy. And a lot of them are trying to buy for Christmas and that sort of thing, so they do have to buy. But the other one that I quite like in terms of a tip is trying to convert your Black Friday shoppers into pre-Christmas shoppers as well.
Yeah.
So basically giving expiring deals. So as a Black Friday customer, you get a discount as long as you buy online or buy in store before the 20th of December, something along those lines, so that you make sure that the customer might get a second bite at the cherry there. And definitely, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about in terms of first order profitability and second order profitability and customer retention and all of those kinds of things. What can you do to see about kind of basically really incentivizing the customer to come back to the website, to buy again from you during the peak season, when in fairness this is really when you're expecting to make all of your sales. In terms of the deals, like I said, those deals, you need to just make sure that they're in stock or you have enough of them. It can kind of damage a reputation as much as anything. Where remember years ago we had a client that put a lot of effort into a particular sale, and they had one lead product, and they went onto social media. We're going to have this, going to be at a great price, and all the rest of it. Product sold out in less than a minute.
Oh, wow.
Um, it turned out they only had 19 of them, as it so happens, and it was kind of early doors for e-commerce in Black Friday, and and all of that kind of thing. But like people then got ratty on social media saying, "I'm sure they never had this in the first place," or "Oh, that was never
Yeah, yeah,
available,"
yeah.
and all that kind of a thing. I remember like again, what was it Rafe? What's his name? Not Ray Foley, the guy on Today FM. He was on Today FM giving out stink about, I think it was Kindles or something at the time. Kindles were the big product of the time, and he was trying to buy like 5 Kindles for his family or something.
Mm.
And an electrical appliance dealer who will remain nameless but is quite large basically just ran out of the product, and he gave out stink on radio,
Wow.
at peak about this, because they didn't have enough stock. So just make sure you have enough stock for the deals, and then obviously I suppose going back to the customer database and sweating the assets and all of that kind of a thing. How are you going to build up anticipation for your customers? Make them excited for what's coming. Can you do secret sales? Can you do product drops, or hourly product releases? We have a client who has a very successful approach where they basically put out their deals at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, etc. Get huge traffic onto the site at those periods.
Keep
And
people coming
again,
back.
same story. You're building up this anticipation. People buy all day long. They
Mm.
They have like they've had people who buy it every hour on the hour when they're doing this. So that kind of a thing where you're building up this anticipation. Obviously there's going to be a huge amount of marketing as ever. So why not get in there early and let people know that you're in business for Black Friday and you're going to have good deals and all that kind of thing. And maybe sign up to get reminded when it comes up, or sign up to be part of our release, and what or anything like that, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, those would be kind of
So
general like tips.
have some kind of deal. Doesn't have to be a discount. It can be some other kind of offer, but have something on the website that is incentivizing people to buy. Have your
Yeah,
inventory levels ready. Have that customer database sorted. Make sure that you know what's working, what's not working. Again, that probably ties in tandem with the point around making sure that you're doing that post-mortem on what happened last year. Did it go as according to plan? Did it not? What did we say we were going to do? Let's go and do that this year. Sounds quite basic, but again, it's just a really, really important point.
sometimes.
And finally, just making sure that we have the correct inventory to match up with the varying offers that we're trying to run as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes the
yeah,
basics are the basics are basics, but it's hard to be brilliant at them. I remember a retailer years ago was giving his particular top tips at the time, and one of his top tips was make sure you have enough bubble wrap. It was actually hard for because there was a packing product, so product to pack your orders. Like you're going to have loads and loads of orders. Have you got enough boxes, bags,
basic.
or
Yeah,
whatever it is that you need? And that seemed obvious, but like if you can't get the orders out on time because you ran out of boxes, it's a disaster.
you
So
certainly
yeah.
feel silly then.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Um, Perfect, Gerard. We might leave it there. So, listen, really, really, really enjoyed the chat. Honestly, there's loads of great nuggets in that. If people are looking to get in contact with you, or the team at Studio 49, where can they find you?
Yeah, studio49.com with a nine. Because the Studio 49 was domain name squatted 15 or 18 years ago. We're on LinkedIn. You can find me there easily. Be delighted for anybody to follow along. We also have a podcast. I do a podcast with Gordon Newman called Functional and Fabulous. Gordon is fabulous. I'm functional. People could listen in on that. We've got some great guests as well. It comes out like monthly approximately. So
We'll drop a link to the LinkedIn in your email, and we'll drop a link to your guys' YouTube channel there as well, in the show notes. But listen, Gerard, just want to say thank you very, very much for coming on. Really, really appreciate that. That was brilliant.
lovely and really enjoyed it, Thomas. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Talk to you soon.